It still takes you by surprise, even in the pitted landscape that is Yarmouk. The arrival of a tank on the edge of the battlefield, a group of soldiers pulling out an injured comrade. These are Syrian government soldiers fighting Bashar al-Assad's battle against the last remaining rebel enclave in Damascus. They control 75% of the Yarmouk area, they say. The rest is held by ISIS. Inside the hulking ruins of the camp, decimation is the only word that fits. At the start of the war in 2011, the mainly Palestinian neighborhood was home to around 160,000 people. Now it's inhabited by a nest of fighters and the occasional dog, looking as scarred as his surroundings. Some of the Syrian soldiers are taking us to have a look at the front line. They move in tunnels blasted out of the walls and hidden behind blinds to avoid snipers. When you see it, it feels as close as two teeth. A young soldier named Amin Salah tells us he's not worried about reports of Israeli shelling in Syria these past few days. No, he says, we're ready for anything. He's 25 years old and he's been in the army for 7 years. The flags that fly here are Palestinian. Different factions split into pro- or anti-Syrian regime camps when the war started. ISIS appeared on the scene in 2014, giving itself a base just 8 kilometers from Damascus city center and still making use of it today, firing missiles downtown and killing 4 people. Karam Daoud was in the same forward unit as the Syrian soldier carried away in an ambulance earlier. He tells us his friend, named Ahmed, was shot by a sniper as their unit tried to force their way into a building occupied by ISIS fighters. Despite the howl of warplanes overhead, the battle here is on the ground, building by building. Syria's pattern has been to use brutal starve and siege tactics to force rebel enclaves to surrender. None of these soldiers expect ISIS to do that. If Bashar al-Assad's forces do remove them from Yarmouk as expected, the Syrian president will have established full control over Damascus and its suburbs for the first time since the war began. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Damascus.
The war in Syria has left the country fractured. It really hasn't been unified for a very long time. Come have a look at this. From above, you can see who's in control and where. Right here, that's the last major ISIS stronghold. It's a whisper where it once roared. The Kurdish forces continue to hold much of the north, but the largest area is obviously held by the Syrian army and the forces loyal to Assad. But take a look at this area. This is Idlib province. It's the last major pocket of rebellion. Most of the opposition forces have been corralled here. Assad has his eyes on this spot. And that, Idlib, is where we connected with a teacher who tells us what it's like to try to keep the fight alive.
هلا لما كنت بالغوطة كان دائما انه يجيني سؤال انه شو حيصير فينا.
Bayan Reyhan has always been asked questions. She used to be a volunteer teaching children, but now her students are Syria's women who are waiting to be empowered.
ايش معهم بهذا انه توعية النساء على ايش معنى السياسة فاعلة وليست امرأة عاملة. تمام، نحن بحاجة نساء تكون فعلا لدورها، تكون هي قيادية قدرانة like بناظير بوتو, like Jeanne d'Arc. We don't have Merkel, okay? We don't have Merkel in Syria.
But given this, and the fear of being persecuted for speaking out, you have to wonder why someone chooses to do what Reyhan does.
أنا بعتبر إنه الوطن ليس عبارة عن فندق تغادره متى ساءت الخدمة. إنه أنا كنت من أول حدا شارك بالثورة السورية كنساء كمظاهرات كتنسيق، فكانوا يقولوا لي وقت إنه نشوفك بالبلد إنه نعرف إنه لا لسه في ثورة.
Reyhan feels safe enough to talk freely from Idlib. It's not so easy elsewhere, with some Syrians too afraid to really speak their minds. She says you have to look for answers in more than just their words.
ما تحاول إنه ما تاخذ الأمور بظاهرها، لأن سوريا تحتاج إلى عمق لتفهم كل شيء صاير فيها. تاخذي شهادتك من الحيطان ومن الأرض ومن عيون الناس، وحتى إنه تدقق على أجساد الناس.
Now, earlier this evening, Israel fired missiles into Syria, targeting military sites and hitting a radar installation. Israel says it was in retaliation for 20 rockets fired into its territory by Iranian forces based in Syria.